fantastic man. He really is.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
What's going on, everybody? This is Dan French. It's another French Workbench podcast we have going on today. Got a couple of new faces that's happening here across from me. And I want to thank everybody out there for subscribing to my channel, getting the latest content on financing and real estate. And we had a great show today. We're going to talk a lot about some challenges. I mean, everything's about the housing market right now. That's the big topic. And if you guys don't know me, you can look me up. I am a lender with Guarantee Rate. I'm also real estate agent, Key Realty. So if you guys want to take a look at that. And so I just want to give you guys some insight about what's going on in the market. A lot of our topic is about what's going on in the real estate market, you know, overpriced homes, a lot of different things. Today, we're going to talk about, are you a sucker buying a home in this market, right? I mean, I would say no, but there's a lot of people think that, man, you put out a lot of content, you have a lot of shows that's going on, and a lot of these shows are put out where maybe it's bias. Maybe we're biased in the sense that we have a lot of realtors that come on stating that you better buy now because the housing market is really, really high. But it's just data we're getting, you know, it's just information that we're getting, that we're putting out. And so in studio today, I want to introduce both of my guests. They've been here before and they're back and I appreciate them. I'm going to first introduce Esmeralda Lucia. She's been here quite a bit.
Hola.
What's going on today, Esmeralda?
Hi, everybody.
What's happening? So what's going on with you today?
Hey, we're just, I'm excited. June 1st, we didn't have to wear face masks, so I have a big smile.
June 1st.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. And you know, it's weird because I go into these places and I still feel like I need to wear a mask. Even though I'm told not to, I still want to, I feel like I want to wear it. And it's weird. Sometimes I'll do it just out of like habit.
Right.
And sometimes I'll just be like, screw it. I'm just going to keep going. So do you wear a mask still?
You know, I carry one with me in my purse.
Yeah.
Even like,
gotta have original.
I walk in first with it on, and then if they say, hey, you don't have to wear it, then I just remove it. And I get so excited. I'm like, yes, it's getting back to normal. So
I got Mr. Joe the Red Dragon. He's over here.
On?
He's got a lot of good information.
A lot of great information.
A lot of great information. What's
change
happening
your
with you?
life.
You're going to change people's lives
That's
today.
what I do all day long.
So
we're talking housing market. What's going on in the hockey market, though? We got a Knights game going right now.
Oh, really? That's
and
probably...
I gave that up.
Nice,
I gave up glass tickets for you, Dan.
Oh, really?
So, no,
you got
not
the
really.
Knights happening right now?
Well, they're happening, but I didn't have glass tickets.
Yeah, so they
I
actually...
definitely would not have been here had I had glass tickets.
Right.
You know, I like you a lot, but there are limitations. So
I don't blame you. You know what I mean? If I had some tickets, I probably wouldn't be here myself. Somebody would have to fill in or we'd be canceled.
play it on
Exactly.
autoplay, right?
Right.
Just play the music the entire time.
Right? So...
That would work.
play the Knights game. Hey, the broadcast is at the Knights game today. Like,
Oh, can we do that?
Yeah.
On ice?
Yeah, we could do that.
We got to do that.
Yeah, we should try to do that at one point. I don't know about today. I mean, today I didn't get it set up.
It's a little too late.
It's a little
Maybe
too
next
late.
season.
yeah.
Real
but-
estate and hockey.
Yeah.
Go hand in hand.
The Knights are actually doing pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's game 5.
This is the deciding game. Usually in game 5, it's a pivotal
Well,
game.
no, because
right?
it's even.
Oh, but it's a pivotal game, right? Because usually whoever wins this game probably has a better chance of winning the series, right?
I would say, yeah. I think the more games you win, the better chance you have. They
Right.
took 2 at home in Colorado, and we took 2 here. Now we're back in Colorado.
Right.
So it's heating up.
Yeah.
These are the best 2 teams in hockey. So
we better win.
I'll give you an update if we get a goal.
We better win.
Yeah. Well, let's
They better
focus on important.
represent.
Houses, suckers.
That's right, man.
get into it.
Houses, and are you a sucker out there? Look, do you think people are suckers right now buying a home? I mean, let's be frank. I mean, let's be very transparent. What do you think, Esmeralda?
I would say no. I don't think you're a sucker. I think that if it's your home and you're looking for your family, I think it's a good time. I think it always will be a good time.
So let's talk about some of the things that you go through, Joe. I mean, what do you deal with? People probably tell you, is it a good time to buy a home? Are people out there overpaying? They're a sucker because they're out there overpaying for a house. What do you think?
Well, I mostly deal with the suckers that have made a bad decision and trying to get them out of that situation.
What is it that you do? Because you're a real estate, an attorney, excuse me, and you deal with like what, liens and judgments and what is it?
I mean, civil litigation. I did 4 years. I worked for a servicer.
Right.
I mean, it was a law firm, but we handled servicers. Had everything to do with property law. Had everything to do with HOA liens, and people made a lot of money by counseling mortgages, which was a crazy thing. You guys hear about any of that?
No, but I have questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this All right, I'll try to give it as fast as I can because it's kind of complicated. You have 08 or 06, when
all this
crash
stuff happened, yeah.
right? You had people not making mortgage payments.
Yeah.
You had the value of the houses go down by at least 50%.
Absolutely.
You had the banks not foreclosing because the amount of principal owed on the mortgage was less than what they could sell it for out of foreclosure, right?
Sure.
Well, you also had HOA payments that were not being made because you're not paying the mortgage.
And that's a big thing because a lot of people, they don't understand. Like when you get into a house, if you have an HOA, they can actually do it's like a super
priority lien.
Super priority lien.
Something about it,
and they could foreclose, right?
Right. So no one had ever done this though before the crash because this law was passed in I think the late 80s.
Right.
And either you paid the HOA or the collection company would take care of it. Right?
Sure.
But at this point, nobody was paying anything. Nobody had a job. So the collection companies they hired said, well, let's put on this super priority lien. Generally in property law, the rule is if you're first in time, you're first in right.
Okay.
You claim an interest in a property.
Right.
And somebody else claimed the same interest.
Right.
If you were first in time, you have superior interest.
Right.
It's a little complicated. I'm not trying to bore you. But what happened was these HOAs started selling these properties at auction.
They probably give you ample amount of time too. Like if there's an issue on the property, they're not going to just jump and forth. Like,
then
it's got to be a process, and then I think they even give you an out, right?
I mean, back then most of these properties were abandoned.
Yeah.
They just didn't have money, so they packed up, left shop, took town, went back for where they came from. But they sold these properties at auction. Now everybody thought in the legal community that if you're buying one of these HOA sales, that you're buying it subject to the bank mortgage, which still existed, right? The borrower just wasn't paying.
Right.
So you're buying the right to use until the bank comes over and forecloses. So a couple investment companies came up with a scheme where they go, okay, we're going to buy these HOA properties, rent them out for a time, and then when the bank forecloses, we made money, just the difference. So they sold for like $5,000, something like that.
Absolutely.
Anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000. Sorry, hope I'm making sense. There's one.
That's a pretty cheap though, right? I mean, because there's some people like in the past,
Well, it's
not
very
people,
cheap.
but yeah, investors.
These houses were worth like $300 even back then, but they knew that they had the bank still there, so they knew that eventually the bank was just going to sell it out from underneath them. So they didn't go over like 5,000 because all right, if I make 1,000 rental payments, what is that? 12,000 a year. I can make it up in 3 years. Hopefully the market doesn't come back. Right? Little complicated.
Yeah.
One of these investment companies challenged a bank and said, no, when we bought this property, our right was superior to yours. Therefore, your mortgage was extinguished. Somehow, this is the only state that it worked, they won with the Supreme Court of Nevada.
Right. I mean, is this happening today though? Like
No, because that was a mistake that was made.
Okay.
But just to be clear on what happened, people bought houses, like a house that might be worth $400,000, $500,000 today, for $5,000. That's it.
Yeah,
Their
but
house.
and all the HOA was just collecting that money, right? That's their purpose.
The HOA sold the house to collect money due
to the past dues, right?
Right.
Now, there's no opportunity like that today, though. I mean, you can't
There's
really.
always opportunity like that if you go and look for it.
Do you still see that this is happening, or isn't there a law that says, you know what, the mortgage is going to actually challenge that now? Because the mortgage company doesn't want to lose money either. I mean,
exactly.
They're losing, so they're going to go and challenge the HOA.
What they did, I mean, obviously when that decision came down, then the banks were like, oh, we can't let these properties go to sale and do damage control. So they started paying off the HOAs. But up until that point, opportunity is always finding those loopholes before the other party realizes what's going on.
Okay.
Which can happen a lot. I have a friend that bought a house in Reno, right, during the same time, not a HOA, a tax lien, right? IRS needed to get the tax. The guy died, so he wasn't there. He paid $1,100 for the tax. He had to go to court to clear out title. And it's a little complicated how that works because the owner has a certain time to pay off that tax lien, right? So my buddy gave him notice, but since he's dead, and his estate, he never responded. So again, he paid $20,000 for court fees. That house is worth $450,000.
And then they also get in different states. You also can get it's interest if you do pay those tax liens ahead. And let's say that the seller comes back and pays for it and catches up.
Yes,
they got to pay that particular investor or person that actually.
Yeah,
I did that. So
you bought a house that way?
No, I was buying tax liens for a while.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, so I know.
And that's
what is the benefit of that though? Why would you buy a tax lien?
Because just what he said. So what happens is sometimes you might have a seller that might not pay the taxes, and you have an opportunity to actually own a home for the price of the actual tax lien. which is
isn't there a like a
there's
law
more.
that comes in that says this is what it is? Like this is like the government or somebody can take over that house based upon the fact you didn't pay your taxes, right?
Right.
well,
that's
you have
what they
3
did.
years, I think, right? Is
Yeah,
it 3 years?
I haven't
in
checked it
Vegas?
for a while, and it changes. But yeah,
Yeah, different states. I know, like, I don't know if Vegas is 10%, but I remember I have like this list of all different states and the actual percentage that you get back in interest if you do buy the tax liens. And let's say that you paid it for 2 years and the seller comes back and catches up, then they have to give you the interest on that.
How much is those tax liens? How much were they?
I only paid $1,500, and
Really?
yeah, because what happens is, so I went into auction. So
Yeah.
there was an auction that I attended in Green Valley, and it was
Sure.
like my very first time. So I was like, okay, this is weird, whatever. I showed up, you went in, I grabbed a number, and they picked my number. So I ended up actually I was able to
that's
bid.
exactly how it works.
So I bid,
Yeah.
and I won.
Where did you bid at? Where did you have to go to bid on this?
This was in Green Valley in, oh God, what was that? It's a
Probably just the county.
county in Green Valley.
Just
I don't
the-
remember the name of it, but
Yeah.
it was in Green Valley. It was like on Water Street.
Yeah.
They'll list them.
So that's
you can find them online. They'll list them.
You'll list them.
Yeah.
And
So
they
so
tell where to
you
go
think
bid.
that's a good investment? I mean, you think that's
Well,
some-
it just depends what you want to do. Like
Yeah.
Esmeralda was saying, like you were doing it because
I was just like trying to learn, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let me see how this works.
yeah.
you're not throwing a lot of money down, right?
Yeah.
And then the borrower or the owner has to pay you off. So basically, the state, the tax collectors,
Sure.
pawning it off on some, like you want to collect on it, fine, pay me, then you go collect.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. But what people don't realize, I don't know if you realize that you can get full title to a house if they ultimately do not
Yeah.
pay
Yeah.
you off.
Yeah.
HOA was another one. There's all types of sorts of liens that you can actually get priority and get free and clear of mortgages if you know where to look, and if it's with any other type of investment strategy.
Right.
But they're there, and
Yeah.
they're always going to be there. You
Yeah.
just have to kind of research and dig and find where they're at.
I try to do the HOA one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody realized after the fact, which
I was
was
a little late, but I did.
Yeah.
I did go to the auction, and I did do the process on that as well. And I had a friend of mine that was an investor, and he actually got to own a property, and so he bought a home that was in I think it was Queens Ridge, and he ended up buying this house, or he paid off the HOA lien for $25,000. This house was worth like $500,000
Oh, yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was insane.
What's
And
his name? I probably deposed him.
I won't say his name, but he didn't live here. He lived in another country, but he ended up getting the home, and he worked with another friend of mine, and there were investors and whatnot, and he kept the house, and he only paid that amount. And at first I was like, yeah, right, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, everybody. says
I
that.
didn't believe that. I was like, yeah, right. And I remember, like, he went through the whole channel. He had an attorney. He had a team of attorneys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took him about 8 months to get the actual property, and he won. They took it to court, and he ended up winning this house, and he's renting it today, you guys, for $7,500 a month.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, you don't know. Like, you look at some opportunities like that. You just got to know where the loopholes are at. I think you got to know where to go. You got to know who to talk to, and also what.
And there's an element of luck too, because in my opinion,
Of course.
that's a terrible decision by the Nevada Supreme Court, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? Judges are people, and they
Yeah.
make terrible decisions all the time. That's another thing that people don't realize about, litigation. We have this idea that everything's just perfect and cemented, but in reality, it's like playing blackjack. That's what I tell clients all the time.
He won that, and I didn't think he was going to get it. I was like, yeah, right. And he did.
I know I'll tell them what happens, and like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like, I promise you it's true. That's what
Let's talk
happens.
about what's going on. So I got a lot of people out there that are always looking and saying, your real estate show is a lot about, overpriced homes. Very, I would say, right? It's very biased in the sense that you're
Why aren't
telling.
they underpriced?
Well, and here's my thing: is they're saying, well, is it really overpriced? In my opinion, that's my question I'm asking: is it really? Because it's really what somebody's going to pay for it. But I do kind of understand where it's coming from. Where a lot of it is, hey, you know what? If you're going to buy in this market, you better go above price. And I think there's a lot of data out there that shows that people are willing to pay for this. So we're just kind of passing the information. But what we're seeing out there is when I go on the MLS or if I look around and I see a lot of this data of properties, every single one of them for the most part is either active or pending. Pending or in contract. So there's either an offer on there or it's pending to be accepted, multiple offers. Now, we had situations where somebody just got approved for a house and got into contract, and it's like, well, what was the scenario? Well, you asked full price. It depends too on how long the house is on the market, right? It also depends on if somebody's living in the if somebody like a tenant's living in there or something where it's kind of eliminating them from the full exposure of the home. A lot of times we're seeing that a lot of these homes that's on the market, people are staying away from those types of homes. So it's a really tough market. People are willing to pay a premium where they look at homes that have somewhat of a backyard or a pool. If something comes on the market right now with a pool, good luck. You're going to have it's hot, right? So
and I always thought that. See, I bought my house 2 years ago, and I've been hearing this for a while, that pools decrease the value. And now it's not to be true anymore.
Let me say this. So if you go price out a pool, right, it's going to cost you $40,000 to $60,000.
That's a basic one. Nowadays it's about $80,000 to $100,000.
Yeah, you need a high dive and a water slide and a bar. And
you need all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
A cave. Okay.
So I always say this. If you don't have a pool, sell that house. And then go buy one with a pool, because it's probably going to make more sense and it's going to be a better return on investment than just going and putting a pool in your backyard. So I think that's why it's so desirable. It's easier to buy a home that already has a pool than trying to go put one in. But what the data is showing is that there's not a lot of homes on the market, 2,000 homes roughly, right? And there's people out there that are still willing to go 30 or 40 above, depending on if they got a home with a pool or if they got a bigger backyard. Location's a big thing. So there's a lot of things out there. Do you think people, though, that are buying these homes, knowing that, it might take them 3 to 5 years, that they're going into it knowing that, hey, am I a sucker for buying this home? Because, look, everybody's always saying, well, you're just giving out the same information, overpriced homes, and people are buying. Yeah, but it's not like this in every city. It's not like this in every state.
Exactly.
Every state is not the same as Las Vegas. And
Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, like
people want to. They'll pay you to take their house in Kansas,
right? Right. So I think it comes down to really options and what's available and what's out there. And I think a lot of times people don't understand what market they're getting into. This is a tough market. It's a tough market for real estate agents. Sellers know that they can make money, and if you got an earnest money on sitting at title, that's at risk. I mean, if you don't do your diligence, somebody's going to try to take that potentially. So. What do you guys think? You guys think that people out there, you got friends and family, you guys have people out there. Is this a sucker market for buying a home? Do people think like, hey, you know what? At all costs, I'm going to do it. What are your thoughts?
Look, to give the most blunt answer here, right? I had a degree in finance and economics, right? A lot of classes we had in finance was financial forecasting, when you try to predict what's going to happen with the financial markets to make money.
Sure.
What you learn and then doing all this crazy calculus and whatnot. And then the professor tells you, oh, I don't know, because you can't financially forecast. We're just doing kind of hocus pocus here. The point being is you can't predict the future, right? Now, if your question is it overinflated because the bidding is so high?
Right.
I think yes.
Does that put you as a sucker, though? Like, hey, you know what?
Yes, it does.
It does. So you think overpaying for a home is a sucker, and obviously that's case by case, but you're saying, and that's fine, you're saying that if you overpaid for a home, I think the same way. I think that if you're overpaying for a house and it's $30,000, $40,000 above, hey, I can wait. Now, we know renting doesn't give you a return, but you know what? Would you want to sink $40,000 into a home and then wait for the equity to be built into it?
Do you got a different take, or?
Well, it was the question that Dan asked. Dan said, do you think you're a sucker by wanting to buy a house? He didn't say, hey, do you think you're a sucker because you're going to pay $40,000 above price?
Right.
And so my question was, or what I answered was, no, you're not a sucker from wanting to own a home. Now, whether you want to invest and pay over what the home is worth in that area, then that's something different. And I think that's really up to that person, how they are financially, if you're stable, one, because not everybody could afford that. And if you're gonna have to borrow money to
get in,
just to get in, then that's
get
dumb.
In the bidding war. And I guess to kind of just what your point, Esmeralda, was, because I guess the question is, if you're a sucker because you're like, I'm so scared of these houses going up, right? I need to buy now. I need to buy now because I'm going to lose out.
Right.
I don't do that. Now, if you have your finances are fine, I don't care if I pay an extra $40,000. That's different. I mean, but here's what I think happened. You had, ever since we started climbing out since the bottom, like 10, right? We still have not got back up to where we were in 06. And meanwhile, the demand and population of the city is just growing exponentially. what happened last year is you had a hiccup in that.
Yeah.
Because COVID, all that. No one knew what was going on. No one was buying houses. You have this hiccup. So the line was going up, then it got flat or went down because of COVID. And then it should have been at this point over here, and that's catching up.
Right.
Right. And that's causing the bidding.
Yeah.
Because now there's less supply, and that's people to freak out. I would say if you let it, you're going to see it kind of peak, come down flat, and then go back up at its normal rate. That's how I kind of see all things else staying constant, if that makes sense. I'm sorry.
I think you have to put in consideration too, like the taxes, HOA, what is the total fees? People don't really put all this in perspective. What does it cost to maintain a home, in this market? So if you're overpaying for that, what happens if something happens beyond, because all these homes are not new. Let's say you had, obviously if you had some type of home, warranty or something happens where the pipes break or something where it's a big cost. Now your additional cost to that house is now tied to that as well. And that's something that you're walking into even more of an expense. I know it sounds extreme, but there's other layers of payment.
Home ownership, right?
Home ownership, right. And is it going to be a point where, is it better just to rent? Because I don't think everybody is a buyer. I don't think everybody is a homeowner or has the mindset to be a homeowner, especially in an accelerating market right now.
Well, there's responsibility though. So I'll give you an example. My mom. So my dad passed in February, and my mom really never had to take care of anything. But then the plumbing went out. Literally like a month ago, and they live in a pretty big house, and the plumbing was almost over, like 15 grand. And I mean, everything was shut down in the house. My mom wasn't expecting that big bill. I mean, yeah, your insurance is going to cover it, but that takes time. By the time they come in, they do the bid, whatever.
Absolutely.
But it's an inconvenience at every level. You couldn't use the bathrooms, you couldn't use the kitchen, you couldn't shower, there's no water to drink. And so all these things, I mean, that's maintenance. At some point, plumbing's going to go out. At some point, your AC is going to go out. At some point. So those are all things that...
There's consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have your money work for you, but I mean, it's something that you have to also consider overall. I mean, when you buy a new home, a lot of people that are pushing for new home, they're not going to deal with that type of thing. But let's say you go buy a home in the 80s or 90s, or maybe even in the 2000s when HOA started, then you're going to start to say, you know what? There's other costs that come into this home that you didn't maybe project to get it. Maybe things that you're looking at are like, you know what? Let's take a big picture or a big look at this, because there's a lot of people that think that when you have real estate agents and you have lenders and everybody, it's like, hey, buy now, go do it. Is it really the right time for you to buy? Should you rent? I mean, if you were out there looking for, considering buying a home or renting, would you rent or would you buy in this market?
It depends where I was in life, right? Well, actually, if I was renting today, no way. I wouldn't buy. I don't like getting, that's just my personal opinion, I don't like getting involved in an inflated, it's not inflated the right word, but kind of a frenzy going on, right?
Do you think it's not a financial good investment?
It's too much of an unstable situation right now that I wouldn't be interested in putting a bid down, right? That's just me. And you talk about some interesting points as far as with the houses you're buying, right? And then talk about, what happens? You put an offer down, they accept it, goes into escrow, you have inspection, the inspector goes and says all clear. But guess what? That may not be the case. I had a client once who was up in Reno, and bought a house, escrow, all that. Turns out that 15 years prior, a flood had come through, cracked the foundation, right? So when he's getting to sell, they come and say, oh, this is cracked, this is compromised or whatever. He didn't know, but guess what? The statute of limitations to sue the builder, that's long gone. You have nobody else to fall back on, right? You got to eat the cost. I'm like, you can't not disclose that when you sell.
Right.
These are things that come with home ownership that don't come with rental.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, the responsibilities on the tenant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on the landlord.
The landlord,
right? That's his deal.
But plus, you don't want to have a. I mean, there's pros and cons, right? But I don't know. To me, it just seems like this is an overinflated market, and I personally wouldn't buy unless I needed to or had to. If I had a choice, even if I had a family, it would be a hard decision for me to go into a market unless I got list price. Now, there is opportunity out there for list price, but if you look at the MLS, and I go on there and I look at this stuff and I look at pending sales, there's really nothing on there. And these homes are on the market, I say hours. It's not days. It's hours, and they're somebody's buying them. So there's not a lot to choose from. And, I guess it goes back to what you said. It depends on where you're at in life.
Right. And I don't know about you. I've never understood personally this idea of the American dream is having home ownership. Because to me, as long as I got a place to live, like, you know, I like it, whatever, family. Ownership and title, my name's never been very, I guess, that important.
So that's not something that you look at and go, that's a desire, and that what everybody should want is that dream of home ownership.
Well, why though? That's what I understand. Home does two things. You live in it, right? A great place to live, and it's an investment thing, right?
Is it an investment?
I mean, why would you buy if it wasn't an investment?
So I look at it like this. If it's an investment, then it's like a stock. It can go up and down depending on what happens. Now, it's not going to be as drastic, but is it something that you said, you know what, if I put my money into this, I will always get a return on it? Now, I can say that for the most part, in all markets, when we do have a recession, I think we just had one, that the markets do recover, right? They come back. No matter how far down we go, they come back. So I think that it is an investment in the sense that you'll always have a tangible asset that you can get something for it. But is it really an investment where you want to sink your money into it?
Well, it just depends on the cost of loan, right? You have a low interest. I mean, in the 90s, the cost of loan was almost double the price of the house, right? So what I'm talking about is you can either pay rent or pay your mortgage, right? Rent's always gone. You're never getting that back. But in theory, if your interest rate's low enough, you know what the cost of loan is, you'll get that back eventually, even if the house doesn't skyrocket in equity, right? You're putting it kind of in a bank versus just giving it to a landlord that never comes back, if that makes sense. But that has everything to do with the interest
You're
rate.
just using whatever you have to potentially get a return on something that you're investing in or you're paying into.
Yeah, you're getting your mortgage back eventually.
Right. And so I think the American dream is not necessarily like it was before, where it's like, hey, you're going to be a homeowner and you're going to own the home. Look at how many people stay in their home 30 years. I mean, people sell in 7 to 10 years. The whole purpose is to plant your money and hopefully have, when you sell it or something happens different, that money will be returned to you at some point in another way, right? When you sell it, you obviously have equity, hopefully, in your property, and that's when you get it. But when you look at the overall situation of homes and you look at the overall picture, is it a wise investment? What do you think, Esmeralda?
You know, when I think about homeowner, the only time I think you're in homeowner is if you own the property free and clear.
Agreed.
Okay, because this is
That's not what America says, though, but agreed.
Right, but if you really think about it, right, if you have a loan, you don't own the home. The bank does. So you're really essentially renting it. You're just renting it directly from the bank.
Which is my point, right?
Right. So you're not really a homeowner until you own the house free and clear. Then now you're really a homeowner.
Now
in my
yours.
opinion.
Now it's your carpet.
Yeah.
You own a house?
No, I don't right now, but I have, because of.
Well, why do you not own a house? Let me ask you that question. I mean, is it a personal thing? I don't want to get too touchy on this.
No, it's not a personal thing. I'm in a place where now I don't need to own a home.
Yeah, but listen, what the point is.
But I would buy to invest right now, but I wouldn't buy right now for me personally because I agree with you. I think it's inflated, and I'm not in a hurry to own a house right now.
Let me ask you a question. Well, we won't get too many details, but when you bought a house, right, whenever that was.
Yeah,
Did you have like a party or anything? Did people come over?
Yeah, I had plenty of parties.
That's my point. Like it's a thing in our society that you celebrate purchasing a house, right? And I think that has a lot to do with the psyche with purchasing a house. Now, when we did it, I thought it was funny because I'm like, I got a mortgage on this house. Like, thanks for coming out and giving me a gift of signing a contract where I have to pay a whole bunch of money.
But you know what? Like the American dream, though, that is sold, and I say because like my family's from a different country, it is the American dream to own a home. But also, I feel like in America, everything is about you being on credit, right? Like have your credit card,
of course,
own your car, but you don't 100%. Really own it. Make your payment, like everything is a payment. But they don't really sell you on, hey, like own your car free and clear, own your house free and clear. Own your piece of land free and clear.
Well, look, I get a bunch of credit cards in the mail, right? And it's just like, hey, sign up. The whole thing is that to have our economy thrive, we need to keep extending credit. We need to keep having people take on loans or take on credit cards. So
consuming.
Consuming.
But from an individual perspective, you don't want to do that. You want to do what everybody else is doing, opposite what everybody else is doing.
You don't, but at the same time, though, then everybody says, well, is there any type of debt that's you'd be willing to take a risk on? I think buying a home would. And I know it sounds biased because I'm a lender, but I think if you're going to get a loan, I would say you might have a chance. It's because of the system. It doesn't matter, is it this or is it that? If the system is giving you the opportunity to say, you know what, if I have to rent or I got to be somewhere, like I'm not living with my parents. Yeah. I'm not in my 30s and 40s. And
that would be weird.
It would be weird, right? And so I think you have to look at it on a case by case, but is it really something that people look at and go, well, this is an investment. I don't know. I think it's more like, well, what are my options, right? Can I rent or do I have a mortgage? And if I get a mortgage, do I have a chance to get my money back? Yeah, I do. I don't know. I think that's maybe the deciding factor.
Right.
It's not because, oh, yes, getting a loan and buying a home. It's just, what is your options? Right. What do you have out there?
Well, two benefits, right? You got tax benefits if you do own a home, because then you can write off the actual interest on the mortgage. I mean, so there's benefits of actually owning a home, and even if you have a loan. What I'm saying is, and what I believe is, a homeowner is just being free and clear. That's just me.
No, I think everybody
opinion.
wants that. 100%. I think everybody wants that. I think everybody wants to be a free and clear. But let's be honest.
How much more money do you have? Not tied up if it's going to a mortgage.
Well,
that's how you start building wealth. So
yeah,
I think that's that.
But I don't. You know what? I don't think everybody wants that. It's kind of like the new car. So you have people that they'll drive the same old car for 15 years because they don't have a car note. But then you have other people, they like the latest, the trendy car, and they're
leasing them.
Yeah, every 2 years they got the best car, and that's just, they like that. They like that rent. They don't mind.
I think it's the way the system's set up. Like, let's look at the cars, right? Cars, they don't last very long. I mean, they do, but I mean, past 10 years, you start having issues.
I had an 04 Camry.
Depends what kind.
I drove that.
Dude, those Camrys are good, man.
Till the end of 2019, December.
What ended up happening to it?
I don't know. The engine was banging around. I'm like, I'm over it. It's just like $200 worth.
Because it's cost, right? And so you start looking at it going, well.
I don't like payments, yeah.
Well,
I like
you don't like
do
payments.
Other stuff with the money.
But then you got other things.
That's my personal, thing.
I think too that the values is based upon somebody's consumer confidence, right? Or the confidence in something like a tangible asset like a home. Yeah. Cars, obviously, they're not. And when you say
appreciate, go away.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the long-term thing is, well, somebody's going to always want to have a home. And if I'm going to put my money into something, I can always sell it or I can do something with it, even when it comes down. So it's like, where else would you plant your money? If you're not a big hedge fund investor, where would you put your money? You know, they got crypto, you got other things. But other than that, what other things that you can? Because I think you need to diversify a little bit on some of this stuff, right? You can't just put it all into a home, or you can't always think, well, a home's the best option.
Well, that's what I was getting at. What is the purpose of buying the home then? We talked about that too. And from a pragmatic, mindset, it's investment in a place to live, right? But I think there's this other psychology about being a home ownership and I don't know, sense of achievement that really drives people's motivation, especially younger people buying a house.
Didn't you feel achieved though when you bought your first home?
No.
You didn't?
No, I felt like it was another debt.
You know what I felt like? I felt like, you know what? I did too. And I felt like it was something that, could I get there? Because you know what? If you come from nothing or you don't have a lot of, it's not that I came from nothing, but you have to kind of work your way up.
I hear you, but I think I bought it so late. I already knew I could have bought it for like 4-some years.
So this was like a process down the road type of thing.
Right. I just chose not to.
You just chose
because I was single. I was bouncing around that time.
I guess it depends on when you buy in your life, right?
Right. But I get what you're saying. Like that. Oh, I can do it. I can stand on my own 2 feet. For me, I just didn't choose to buy a home at that point.
Let's talk about what's going on with Las Vegas. So we know that June 1st, right?
Knights?
The Knights. What's the Knights score, man? What's going on over there,
You talk
buddy?
about that. It sounds like you have.
I know. You got the hat.
I'll look it up. Sports corner over here.
So I think that if you looked at Las Vegas, have you guys been down and saw Lake Mead recently? There's some information that came out that we're really, really low at Lake Mead. And there's potential that there's going to be farmers, including homeowners, that's going to be affected by this. We may have our water shut off from Lake Mead, potentially, if they don't fix this. And actually, the federal government is actually maybe coming in stating that this is a big issue. This is the first time ever. The water is so low. I mean,
it was low before. I want to say it was low like 5 years ago. They were talking about.
How long have you lived in Vegas?
I'm a native.
Oh, born and raised. So you know.
Yeah. It's not my favorite place to visit, but yeah.
Right? You've been here 20 years.
I've been here 20 years.
In Northern Nevada, been here down in Southern Nevada for 4 years.
Right.
They've been saying this my entire life. Now, it was interesting.
Man, you got to see this rim though. It's like a you literally can see where it was at before, and it's so far in. I'm sitting there going, this can't be, right?
It was funny because I was watching this stupid documentary on Netflix, like Flyover States,
what
it's called.
Yeah.
And this was made in like 2009. and they were talking about, look how low and they're showing all the pictures of make me. And Vegas is in trouble unless they do something.
Dude, Vegas is.
We're going to be out of water by 2020, is what they said. And I was like, well, it is 2020.
No, but you got to listen. You got to look at I go out there every weekend. Not every weekend. I would say once a month.
Look at the trend. It's going up and down the last 20 years.
Crazy low.
I guarantee it's been there before. I'll bet money it's been there before.
No, they said it's never been this low. Like, it's been low, but it's not been this low. And I think it's going to.
What's causing that? Did they say?
Well, there's the water's
desert.
It's drought. We're not having a lot of rain, and then it's also it's supplying California, parts of Arizona, and then Southern Nevada.
But why are we supplying California when they have an ocean? And I mean, that's
well, you can't pump from the ocean. But,
yeah, it's salt water.
It's because when they originally did it, Vegas didn't really exist, so it was all. That's why it was dammed or whatever.
Yeah.
But hey, here's the thing: this is a desert. It's not a lot of rain, and guess what? 2 million people aren't really supposed to be here. We have droughts in Northern Nevada. There's my entire life, you get periods of droughts, right? And some are much longer than others. You go historically over 100 years, you get into situations where it's 10 or 20 years of drought. So it is a problem. I think obviously the federal government wants to make sure people are aware of the problem. It's not. I don't think it's unprecedented.
Yeah, but they got farmers now cut next year. They're going to be cut back. I think is like 10 or 20% of water they can use. So that what does that mean? It means that if they're planting crops and doing things, now that's 20% less of crops that they can plant. So this is something to look at because
that means there's going to be increase in the prices of the food.
Potentially, because
there has to be.
Yeah, because now the demand is just like the homes. There's not enough homes. There's not enough crops.
Not enough food. Not enough water.
There's not. You know what I mean? But it's something to look at because I was looking at this the other day.
It is. But I think it's more just of a national problem, right? If you have a place like Phoenix, LA, or I think we talked about this before, or Vegas, get hit because there's not enough water, right? That cripples not just that area, the entire country. We're all connected, and it's a worldwide problem. So, what I'm saying is, innovations always solve these problems before, and I don't see why it would stop now. Yeah, because it's not just our problem. if the Southwest region of the United States runs into this, I mean, you've got a global economic problem, right? So I guess what I'm saying is I'm encouraged because I know that they should know.
I'm concerned, man. I mean, look, you might convince me a little bit there, but I'm concerned still. I'll be honest.
So I'm looking at Lake Mead then.
Well, I'm down there seeing it in person, and I'm like, wait a second. You know, it's funny because we actually get docked. And you go out in the boat, and it's funny because the little canal, it turns into like this little stream. So everybody's got to wait. And then before it was like, hey, we're all going to go out at once. There's plenty enough water. Everybody's good. We went back there a year later, 1 year later.
So last year you went.
Last year. And now it's like this little narrow. Everybody's waiting to go like this where they're coming in and they're trying to like wait for the boats to go through because there's like pretty soon that's going to be dried up. And then docking, it's going to be like, 50 feet or 100 feet from where we used to dock it. It's something to look at. I think
just still not really concerned even a little bit. I mean, we disagree or whatever, but
that's fine.
But because this happens all the time. This year was not a big snow year for the Rockies, where that Colorado goes. Up in northern Nevada, it's runoff from the Sierras, right? There's a lake called Washoe Lake just south of Reno, right? It's kind of a big mud pond, although it's a big lake, right?
Yeah.
I have seen that thing gone down to like a small little pond. We thought it was gone. There says never coming back. Then you have 2 massive record-breaking years of snowfall, and it's covering the highway.
Well, don't you think
this has happened my entire life, though? This up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah, but what if there's a premium on water now? Then you can't.
There is.
Yeah, right. And they're saying that if you have a home, right, that water is going to go to homeowners first. Okay, the actual farmers are going to get that water second. That's why they're going to be 20% decline.
Although it doesn't quite look like that.
It doesn't. It doesn't
because it's that first in time, first in right we talked about.
Yeah,
for water too. There's been. Sorry, I'm talking.
No, that's good. I like it. So look, but the grass, like if you have grass that's not being used, they're not going to water it. They're going to say don't water it.
Well, they're giving you incentives to get rid of real grass, and I think it's
to get rid of it. Put in like the
fake grass. Yeah, you get a check.
Yeah,
get rid of your real grass and put fake grass, and you get a check.
Personally, I would do that, but you know what's crazy is my mom's old school and I'm old school. No.
She wants grass.
No, I mean, it's like the difference between getting an artificial Christmas tree or getting a real Christmas tree. The smell of the real Christmas tree is better. She's the same with grass. Would you want to get artificial grass, or does she like the fact that she can go and put her feet in the fact that it's real grass? So there's things out there that are perks and things that we have in Vegas that potentially could go away, or people would now are going to have a problem with. I think.
Right.
it's something to pay attention to. I'm not going to say that they're not going to come in and save it. Maybe we'll have a ton of rain. Hopefully we do. We didn't have any rain this year though.
No,
none.
Does it ever rain though? Like 2 times.
Well, there's been times
it's the runoff, right?
It's hailed out here before. I mean, it's
I'm
there was
sure
a
it has.
Yeah, there's a point where there's been.
I guess it snowed. It snowed at my house.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, everybody listening, snow is not acid.
It's not.
So, Esmeralda, you didn't bring the shots. Why didn't you bring shots?
I know.
This is Tuesday shot night. You know what I mean? It's like Tuesday taco night. It's Tuesday shot night
No
here.
one told me.
Yeah, we were going to bring drinks and everything. And then I
was going to bring this. I bought this tequila bottle, and I think I discussed that the other day. It was called Angry. And I bought it at an auction. I was like, oh, I should have brought that. And I left it I have another car, and I left it in the trunk. And I was like, oh, I'm going to bring this next time I come.
Where's your place to go in Vegas? You don't go out to the clubs anymore, but do you go to like a lounge? Because that's the thing, dude. It's like if you're
a lounge.
Yeah,
well,
it's more like that's what the older generation do, and I'm not saying you are, but like the more sophisticated.
Yeah, right. You're calling us old.
Not at all. Not at all.
You're only as old as you feel. So
100%. And you know what? You got that good skin too, because I don't. So, but
it's not bad.
No, it's not bad. But you look at the lounge situation out here. Where do you usually go for a lounge?
You know what? I was at Red Rock. I was at the middle bar or whatever that was, the center bar.
Middle?
Yeah, and I thought it was cool. It looked different.
Yeah.
Maybe because I hadn't been out.
This is because of COVID just opened up, right? And we're just kind of taking advantage. Man, I see Vegas back.
It was nice. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. They had good music, some hip hop, and just.
Did you start dancing right there? Were you just like, let's have it?
I love music and I love to dance. So yeah,
what's your music? Salsa?
I like salsa. I like merengue. I like
See, what do I tell you, man? What about you? What do you like?
What, dance moves?
Yeah, dance music. Dude. Have you been out? Have you been out to Vegas? Like, have you been out and about? Like,
yeah.
Not saying we go to clubs. We're not doing that. But I'm just saying you going
I never
out.
went to clubs to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, are you?
I know the ladies love the clubs, but I think it's a setup to just steal all the guys' money.
Yeah,
honestly.
Well, I think they want to invite a bunch of guys, right?
Yeah, you pay like $70 to get in, right? And you're in college. How does anybody like afford this? Then $20 drinks, and then you got to buy every girl a drink. Like, this is just.
You don't buy every girl. You just buy the girl you like.
I know, but it never.
You got to flip it on them, dude. You got to tell them, hey, I bought last time, you buy this time, right? And see what they say. If they say something different, that's where you really know where things are.
You go home thirsty and lonely at that point.
That's right.
You're gonna be like, yeah, this guy can't even buy a drink. I don't know. He sounds like a bad deal. It sounds like a bad deal from the beginning if you can't buy a drink.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, because you asked if I went out, and I went out to that. When was that? That same place, that center or Red Rock.
Yeah, the center bar.
Like 5 weeks ago, because my buddy from Indiana was out here.
Yeah.
And he gets in at like 11, so we're hanging out. There's something to do. And then they closed that bar at like midnight. She came around and she's like, all right, we're closing up like last top. I'm like, is this a casino bar in Vegas?
But what day was it? Was it like on a weekend or was it?
I guess it was a Thursday. But even the kind of
because I went on Friday and it was late and people are still.
Maybe I just never been on a weeknight, but I thought I didn't realize they closed bars in Vegas.
Yeah.
I thought that was our thing. Just kidding.
Well, there's
drinking
a lot
problems.
Dude, Californians, right? They come out here and they celebrate. And when during the pandemic, they were out here quite a bit. You know, even people from other states. But man, it was
they came out a lot
They came out a lot. And so I don't know. To me, I think that's one of the things moving here too. Is like, yeah, you want to buy a house, but they do like the fact that Vegas really tries to push the envelope to not close or not. You know, they're trying to say, hey, it's Vegas, right? Let's keep it open as much as we can, or if we can. I mean, we shut down, but it was like we were one of the first, I think, to kind of like get things back where people were coming out here. That
first one back open, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. I think there's a lot to that where people probably look at that as like, you know, this is another perk to be here. That's why people are buying here from California. A lot of people are buying from California. Cost is cheaper. We all know that. But there's other things that Vegas has, and I think there's also. I almost feel like Vegas. It doesn't handcuff you on anything. And I think that's what, like when you go to California, I feel sometimes if you're not in a store or you're not somewhere at a certain time or certain things shut down.
2:00.
Yeah. Even sooner
Everything
than that,
shuts down. Well, it did before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now it shuts down at 6:00. It doesn't open.
Right.
That's just horrible.
Did you guys go to California last year?
I did. I did, yeah.
Did it? It's all right. Having rules in place is one thing, right? But I felt that people seem to like it. Like they're like, shut us down as much as you can because we actually.
I don't know, man, because
it was a completely different vibe.
Yeah.
Like not, oh, this is awesome. I'm like, what is going on?
So I went to Bakersfield for a game for.
Well, Bakersfield's different.
Yeah. So, but listen, it's not a place that I would go to, but it was, we were going for a tournament for my boyfriend's son, and I was like, oh, we're going to Bakersfield.
Tournament was soccer? Or something?
Yeah. No, he's in basketball. So
okay.
We ended up going, and I was really shocked. Like, no one was wearing masks. It was full.
Well, yeah, but Central Valley, yeah.
And I just thought, I don't know why I thought the vibe was going to be different, but
go to Napa.
They just didn't care. I'm like, oh, okay. And I felt like I was overdoing everything. I had a mask and all kinds of stuff, and everybody else didn't care. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, I guess what I meant by that is like L.A. and San Francisco and those areas.
Well, they're strict.
It's a big state.
Yeah,
Very strict.
Let's not kid ourselves though. I mean, when we this whole topic was really just talking about people, should I or shouldn't I? Because there's a lot of people that says. Your realtors out there, you guys just want people to buy homes, and that's what you're trying to push the agenda for that. Not really. I think it's just more like, hey, you know what? Everybody's in a different place. You got a house in California, and you're buying a home here. Well, they're probably not going to care if you're a sucker or not. Why? Because they probably made $100,000 or $150,000 off their house. So
they made more than that,
right? So when we're looking at it, we're going the average person out there that's trying to push everything, getting rub some nickels together to buy a house. Is the cost effective for them, or should they take that in consideration to say, you know what, I'm just going to rent because I would never buy a home at $30,000 or $40,000 above. I think it's just outrageous.
Well, but that's an interesting point though, because 30 years ago, if you're having this discussion in the LA market, for instance, are you a sucker for buying a house? Well, no, you would have been a sucker for not buying a house because you would have made $1.6 million or something over the 20 years. Don't have a crystal ball, right? I mean, this is the other angle.
Well, I think people are looking for that. They're looking for that big gain, though. Like, hey, I'm buying a house because you know what? In 5 years, I'm going to make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. Maybe you will, but at the same time, is it worth it to go in negative equity? There's a lot of people that don't care. Hey, do they need more money? I'll throw more at the title company. I'll do it, and or just other things. There's no consideration in the sense that it's a high demand, low inventory situation, and is it pushing people to think, you know what, at all costs I got to do it. Now, obviously, if you sell your house for a premium and you come here, maybe you're not a sucker. Maybe you got somebody in another state and they're the sucker because they overpaid for that house.
Right.
And now you're just kind of like that, it's a domino effect.
I think that what you said was perfect, right? Like, it depends where you're at in your life. And it might be like, just like you said, hey, somebody from California, they sold their home, they made $500,000. They come here and it's a bargain. And they might have had to pay $60,000 overpriced, but that's nothing compared to what they've sold. And now they paid their home. They paid overpriced, but they made how much? $300,000, $400,000 in LA. So it depends on your scenario. And I think in the fact of like the American dream as a family, though, if that's what your goal is to own a home, I said this, I think in the last podcast, is if you could get a loan today and you could afford it today, then, and you want to do this today, then I think that is your market. Because like we discussed this last time, when the market tanked, I was in a market when homes were like 25,000 at some of them. It was crazy. Right. But at that time, I had multiple homes and I lost a lot.
25,000?
Yeah, there was homes that I was seeing. When the market crashed, but I couldn't get a home because I couldn't get a loan because I had foreclosed on some of my homes. So it wasn't my market, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
So you're in the same boat everybody else, and that was the problem.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you one of the best piece of advice I ever got. Whenever you're making a decision, whatever it may be, and you're trying to figure out how to make a decision.
Sure.
Just say, if you make the decision, figure out what is the worst case scenario, right? So if you're buying a house, what is the worst case scenario? Well, in 3 months, I lose my job or whatever, and I can't afford the mortgage. Where does that put you? Like in your life, what does that mean for you? Where you got to go, whatnot. And it's a personal decision, but if you say, I don't mind the worst, I mind it, but I can live on with the worst case scenario, then go ahead and do it. If you're saying, I can't handle the worst case scenario, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because that's just what we're talking about. That's a good point. That's a good point. So, if you have issues that's maybe holding you back, or you have any hesitation, especially in this market, maybe it's not the right time, and that's it. I mean, look, I'm not here to tell you to go buy a home. I'm just telling you the facts. The facts are the facts. And if you're looking and saying, well, is the right time? I don't know. Everybody's different. I can tell you that I have a conversation once a day about people telling me, would you buy in this market? And I pretty much tell them, if I'm paying overpriced, probably not. I don't think it's a wise move. Now, everybody's going to say, well, maybe, you'll get that equity in a year or 6 months. There's no guarantee. And you know what? You're coming into negative equity. Well, I don't know if it's like I said this earlier. I don't think it's necessarily the price, but what you're seeing as far as the bidding. That's why I wouldn't do it, right? Once this bidding frenzy cools off, you're going to see a much more realistic idea of what the true market value of houses is. That's just my opinion.
Well, from an investment standpoint, though, if you need a house and you're buying a primary residence, I get it. Now, that number, if it's whatever it is, 50, 60,000, because you might want that bigger backyard. That's a premium. Now, you might want that pool. That's a premium. Like I said, you go on the MLS and you look at these properties out there, everything's pending. Everything's in contract. And the ones that are not, there's a reason probably why it's not.
It just got cute.
Right. They just got on the market, or there's something behind the scenes, of why it's not selling. Maybe there's a tenant in the house, But
do you guys have any clients ever ask you about foreclosure purchases and that type of stuff?
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, when you look at the foreclosures, we don't have a high volume of that, and everybody's looking towards a moratorium.
That's true.
Yeah, and they're
I'm just thinking of alternative ways that are out there.
There is, but I think it depends on the markets, case by case.
Yeah,
there's nothing here stating that we're going to have. Everybody thinks the foreclosures are going to happen here, and there's going to be a big market for houses. Investment homes are going to come on the market. All these things are happening. Well, there's a lot of factors to that.
Yep.
What are the arrangements they made with their servicing company, right? If they do have a mortgage, maybe some of them.
What do you mean people think there are a lot of foreclosures about to happen?
Well, they think because people like the eviction, now the mortgage is going to stop here on July 1st. So they think once that stops, people are going to have to figure out either how they're going to recover. Some went on to getting, where they had maybe, I don't know, there's just different arrangements. Maybe one had a modification. Maybe one put it towards the end of the loan. As far as the difference, either they got to catch that up or they don't. But there's a lot of arrangements that's being made. So
you mean people catching up on payments that they missed?
Correct.
But why does that matter? Because they're trying to get them out because they know they're not going to pay. If you got a tenant in there, you just want to kick them out so you can get somebody in.
Right, but they want to recover the money from the tenant.
But all they can do is sue them. And if they don't have it,
there's a new law that took place, and we actually had this conversation. I don't have the full details,
but take a look at it then.
So this is what they said, that when that does happen, when they do change that from how can the landlord recover from the monies that they didn't make from their tenant, that they're going to be able to submit some type of application to the state.
Oh, state funding,
right.
Taxpayer dollars.
But there is stipulations to that, which is that they have
go after the.
Yeah, we have to give the actual tenant, I think it's 90 days for them to move out and find a place and give. You can't just kick them out and then go after whatever they didn't. So they're still protected, both sides.
Servicers don't want to foreclose. I mean, it probably costs them more money. They're going to figure out ways to do. So I don't see, like when we had that issue before, they were writing bad loans and people were actually leaving their home. And when the payment increased, they just stopped making them all together and then they went silent. It's a different. I think it's a different animal.
I've heard this because I got friends that say, "Oh, we're going to go into another housing crisis," right? Just because they went through it and they're going in it again, right? And it's mentioned bad loans or the bad mortgages. In my opinion, that's not what caused it. Okay. In my opinion, if you look at the Great Recession and the Great Depression, right, the two samples that you have that are similar, they have a very similar thing that happened. With the Great Depression, you had the stock market crash in 1929, right? But that's not what caused it. What caused it was the run on the banks when you had some
100%.
And the fact that everybody in the country had all their money in the banks, right? Everybody woke up the next day.
Don't you think they knew this was going to happen, though, a little bit? Like, look, if you got bank CEOs, well, listen, if you got bank CEOs and they're trying to profit from this, that's really what's going on. You got a too big to fail type thing where they're making product or they're creating guidelines during that time. They're not doing that today, but they did it at that time.
They did it after.
It's almost like we were the bartender as a lender, right? We're just passing the drinks.
Exactly.
Right? And so whoever's responsible, technically, yes, it's the bad loan products or the programs, but the banks are the ones that started it.
But the reason it had such detrimental effect, right, was because everybody, that's where the money was, right? And so everybody at once goes into a panic. In 2008, everybody was buying houses for investments. Not true today, right? In other words, if that bubble crash pops, which it did, right? If you have everybody in society in that bubble, it's going to have a huge dramatic effect versus a smaller bubble like the dot-com boom, right? It hurt the economy, but not nearly to the same level because there wasn't as many people in that bubble.
Yeah, but the housing sector is a very big part of the economy. So if it has an
Correct.
issue across the board, it's going to have a greater impact on our economy.
Correct.
The .com, I get it, but it was a lot smaller of an impact.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
And back then, people were buying one house, two houses, three. That's where all their investment was. That's where all their money was. I don't think that's true today. I think people are buying houses.
Also, there was a lot of fraud, and there was a lot of straw buyers.
Well, right. There was a lot
and there was,
but they have done
the stated loans. Remember,
100%.
You could be working at McDonald's and have a $500,000 home, and that was the problem.
So
People
what have
were
they done?
qualified for things
What
they
have they
didn't afford.
done to fix that? In the last
You
12
don't have
years?
those kind of loans today,
What's preventing them from
right?
doing it?
I mean, Dan, you know more about this than me. But
But exactly,
They
though.
don't have these opportunities. No, I mean, they still have,
there's different
lending
loans.
is opening up a little bit depending on program. But the point is that there's nothing in this market that says, are you going to be a sucker if you buy? It's really going to come down to what is your situation and what do you be willing to buy? Because back in
your goal. What is your goal?
Right, because
might
if
have
you
a
go
goal.
back, you go back 2005 and 6, I think it was a no-brainer, but I didn't buy homes. Why? Because I was worried that the market was going to crash again. Everybody was like, hey, you know what? Put all this money, I got all these homes, it's going to crash again. Compared to this market today, this market's a little different. Because in this market, you're looking at people that are saying, well, I don't see anything out there that shows signs that we're going to have those types of markets again, right?
Right.
And so that consumer confidence is there. And I think that's what's driving these people because they think, well, I'm selling my house somewhere else for a premium. I'm going to buy here. But there's nothing that's giving them a hint of caution, and they're willing to go that high. I don't think it's an investment. Even if I sold my house for $100,000 above, I wouldn't go pay $20,000, $30,000. I just wouldn't do it. There's always, the reward is if something happens where if you're supposed to buy a home, a lot of factors into it, but the ones that wait typically make the most return. That's my opinion. Like if you're a panic buyer, if you're somebody out there's like, I got to get into it now, those aren't the ones that they don't make the best decision, it seemed like, or the best return. Also, who's giving you this information, right? Now, if you want to get into a house because you got to, but you got to look at it from different angles. It can't just be, well, would you buy, Dan? I don't know. What's your situation? Do you have the extra 30 or 40 sitting around? Do you care?
So did you just answer the question of the topic of today? I think the answer that we've concluded is that you're a sucker if you don't look at what your situation, don't crunch the numbers, don't figure out what your goal is, what you're doing,
Right.
and just buy.
Yeah, the
And I don't
American
think you're a
dream is
sucker
a
if you
dream, but is it really a dream? But
Yeah.
is it more of, is it going to put me in a better position in life? Because I think you're making life decisions when you buy a house,
and
right?
that's why I was talking about that earlier. Because my point I was trying to make, the idea of buying a house, right? It's symbolism for a lot of people. Like, look at me, look where I'm at. Just like buying a nice car or whatever, right? I think you're a sucker if that's your attitude when you're buying a house. They serve a purpose. Now, maybe it's not an investment for you, but it's a place to live for you, right? Whatever the purpose is that you need in life, is it fulfilling that or is it not? Right?
Esmeralda?
You know what I look at for houses, and this is probably a Dan question, right? Most people, in my opinion, because when I used to do the escrow and I used to do the signings, I could see like in their savings, I could see everything they had. And what I realized was a lot of people do not save money. And their home is the only way they can save, unfortunately. And it could be not just because they're bad savers. It could just be because maybe they just don't make enough money.
Well, is it because...
And that's like a little shelter for them, I
maybe
think.
people don't... And that's a good point, actually. Because if you look at it, the cost of living is going up. We know this. We see it right now. We're witnessing it as we speak, right? But there's a lot of people that don't understand how to diversify their money or put it away. And they think, well, at least if I buy a house, it's going to something.
Exactly.
It's not, maybe I'm not the smartest person out there to invest in the crypto or stock market or, I got other businesses that I'm starting. But if I'm a homeowner, and it's like, again, it's a stigma thing, right? It's like, hey, if you're an American dream, go buy a house. Great. Everybody should own a home. Well, maybe. But I think people are starting to realize that buying a home is important and it is going to help you potentially. But there's other ways to invest your money. But for the average person out there, it's like this. If you go and you don't know what you're going to do in life. Let's say you just got out of high school and you're like, I want to go to college. Well, what are you going to go to college for? I don't know, because I don't really have a passion on anything. But probably going to college is okay because at least you're getting something for it and you're not wasting your time. The same with a home. You might not be able to invest.
Depending on who you are.
Right. You might not, if you don't have a game plan and you don't understand where to go or where to invest your money or how to save it, maybe it is comfortable for you to say, at least I own a house and I might live paycheck to paycheck, but you know what? I'm still paying a mortgage.
Right.
Yeah, but you still like, that's how you get, that is your savings account. That is your, the money that you're building together with your significant other or yourself. And that's okay. Like, to me, I think those are goals that are achievable. And for that kind of situation, then that's smart, in my opinion.
I wouldn't say it to me, though, my personal experience.
Yeah, but you're not in that scenario.
Correct. And you're 100%. I'm just saying I wouldn't look at it as it's a savings account. Now, I understand what you're saying because the average person out there. But
just don't rely on it as being your actual savings.
Correct.
Right. I guess it comes down to personal experience. I guess, my story, when we bought a house with my wife, right? And we're attorneys, so we made good income or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm like, we're not going to buy a house that we cannot sustain on one income because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, blah, blah, blah. Now, other attorneys would kind of ridicule for like, oh, you could buy this house and this house and this house, right? And I think that's a sucker move, right? What is the point of doing that? It gives everything we need.
I think exactly the same way you do. So I think that I don't want a mortgage that I can't afford if I lost my job 3 years from now. I want a mortgage that doesn't matter what I do, I could pay that mortgage. And to me, I think that's wise versus buying the biggest house that looks the best.
Yeah, but that's pushing a lot of people out of the market because now they're probably they're in uncomfortable territory because now you're looking at homes that are way overpriced and now they got to make a decision. You know what I'm saying?
It may be different for every person, but again, it comes down to like figure this stuff out before you make an offer, right? Figure out, okay, what is a bad case scenario? What happens if this happens? Just play it with your mind so you make an informed decision.
So here's the question.
Yes.
Okay, you're moving from California, or not let's say you're not living in California. Let's say you live here. And you know that you're on a budget and you know that you can only make so much of a payment. But you want to live in Vegas. Are you willing to play the game? And that's the question. Are you willing to play the game? Is it an investment for you mentally?
What do you think, Esmeralda? Tight budget.
If I was in a tight, I like financial freedom personally. So to me I look at numbers. I'm a numbers person when it comes to whatever I do. Whether it's home, cars, I look at it like I don't want to be house poor.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. How many people think that way though? Like if you're going into this market, can you really have that mindset where I don't want to be house poor? Because if you don't have properties and your family's got to be here or something's got to change and you got to be here, can you really go into that mindset? Because I think that's responsible. I think it's smart. I wouldn't go and jack up my price to $500,000 or $600,000 because that's all that's out there and that's what I want. And I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to probably, evaluate pros and cons and see what's out there. But what if you're going into a market and you don't really have that option?
To buy a house and rent, if that's what you want to do.
Well, yeah.
Here's the thing. You can take that extra money and put into a mortgage, right? Or you can do something else and save it and invest it in normal interest rates. I guarantee you, if you have good habit with that, you're going to make way more than you ever make at the equity of the house. And you'd be better off than the person that bought it and didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's just a fundamental fact of financial planning.
Yeah.
No one's going to disagree with that. We're not. So again, what's your goal of buying the house? Right. Because different investments out there and there's difference. But then again, maybe like you said, you're terrible with money. You don't have good habits. You don't have the discipline.
Correct.
And you're like, look, it's better for me because I know I'm not going to make as much.
I did something, right?
Yeah.
I did something. Look at me. I'm doing something. And listen, it is a big investment. It's the biggest investment a middle class person is going to make in their lifetime, right? For the most part.
Right.
It's and cost of living is going up. Houses are going up. So these are big decisions. These are big boy and big girl decisions that need to be made. And I think you have to take these things and look at all angles in different consideration. It's not just, hey, market's going up, let's go do it. Yeah. Really?
It's big decisions. Same time, it's not life and death, right? I mean, we're all...
Well, but if you got to rent or you got to live somewhere, and let's say that you already live in Vegas, then that's an obstacle. Let's say you're moving here and you're trying to find a place to go and you know that you know what? I might have to pay rent. Maybe the place that you're renting, because there's not a lot out there to rent, and rents are going up too.
And it's horrible.
Right. Yeah, so now are you paying $300 more than a morgage you can get? So you see, there's a lot
the flip. Then that's why we're having this conversation. Yeah. Because the flip is they could jack it up on you. I couldn't see rentals getting anywhere close to what they are in like San Diego, at least anytime soon, though. So what is that?
They're still going up, though. Yeah, they're still going up, though. And listen, people are feeling the effects. And guess what? You know what? If the wages aren't going up here, the average median wages out here are not going up and going at a pace with that, we're going to have some serious issues for people.
So then maybe you ask yourself, why are you in Vegas, right? Are you here long term?
That's the choice.
Are you here long term? If you're here long term, then that threat of higher rents, well, that's a bigger reality. If you're like, I'm doing whatever job, I'm only going to be for 2 years, then that's
Vegas is
completely different.
Vegas
completely
now
different.
is a premium. That's my opinion. If you want to live here, you're going to pay for it. And it used to be, guess what? We got no state tax. Great.
Well, guess what?
But you're still paying a premium now because it's a desirable place. It's right next to California. It's a cheaper place to live than Hawaii and California, which we have a lot of people come from, West Coast, East Coast.
I love Vegas. I'd rather live in Hawaii, but
well, I would too.
Hawaii, that's expensive and
it is
slow.
expensive. But anyway.
Yeah, it's a very slow pace of life, but it's still, there's a lot of perks to Hawaii. I love Hawaii, which is different thing. Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
I like the family life. I said, you know, if I had a second home, which I don't, but if I did, I would go there for sure.
Yeah.
See, and me would be Florida.
So what do you guys think? What are you guys' thoughts on this housing market? Final thoughts, because I want to kind of end the show. Esmeralda, do you think buying a home's really legit right now?
I just think I want to say it depends on your goal, right? So if your goal is, hey, I have a family, I need to provide a roof, and I've rented long enough, and this is an accomplishment and a goal that I have for my family, for myself, then no, I don't think you're a sucker if you can afford it. If
Good point.
If you could afford it, if you know that putting 30, 40 grand above, it's not going to break the bank, and you're fine, and you have a, I'm not going to say maybe you have an inheritance of I don't know how much money, and it doesn't matter, or maybe you have a great job and it's okay. But if it's going to put you in a bind where you're going to be house poor and you're going to struggle, then to me, like in my opinion, I wouldn't want that because I like to do things. I like travel and things like that. So that's how I look at it. But that's me. That's my personal opinion.
What about you?
Well, I think we answered this this episode. One, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or not. No one knows what the prices are going to be next year or the year after that, period. Two, if you decide to buy a house, you are a sucker if you do not do the analysis to know the pros and cons and crunch the numbers and you just make an offer. You're a sucker. You're not a sucker if you go through that analysis and you make the best decision, right? Because the idea that, oh, you're a sucker because the house went down later, right? And, oh, I messed up by buying now. You don't know that.
Yeah.
That's not a bad decision. You don't have any way of making that decision.
Yeah.
So just do the analysis. I think you'll be fine.
You don't have the crystal ball.
Exactly.
Well,
don't kick yourself if something like that happens.
Yeah.
Like, stuff happens. It's going to happen in your life all the time. Ups and downs.
Again, I think this is probably put out as not to nauseum as far as people saying, buy now, it's overinflated.
Yeah.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. I mean, nobody has that right answer for anybody, but I can tell you that what I've seen is that by waiting, prices have gone up. And is there any data that shows that prices are going to come down? I don't know. You know, if you're trying to buy a home, you may miss the boat. You may not. I don't know, because it's going to be dependent on what happens with the economy here. It's going to be dependent on what happens with how prices of homes start to come down with more inventory on the market. When you got 2,000 homes, man, I don't know. I think I'm sitting on the sidelines. I don't think I'm going to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to join the party. So that's just me. Why? Because I'm trying to make an investment. Now, if I was in a market and let's say, hey, would you go 5 above? I don't know. With my threshold, maybe. But again, you're still walking into negative equity. So I think everybody's different. But I think you also have to look at the situation, and you have to look at what is coming up and what's happening in that local economy. You look at the moratorium. Let's see what the effects are for that, right?
I think that's going to open opportunity for new homes. Not like more homes in the market to have options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to like do what everybody says, though. I don't think it's going to like revolutionize this economy and everything's just opened up and all of a sudden prices are going to come down. Let's be honest.
Think, more homeless people or?
Yeah, right.
You remember when Vegas got sued for putting a bunch of homeless people on a bus to San Francisco? One-way ticket?
I don't know. Did they do that?
San Francisco then sued them. And then New York did the same thing. They sent them to Hawaii.
That's just terrible.
It's a crazy. This happened in the last like 4 years.
Right. Oh my God.
Here, we're going to give you one ticket shipped right out of town.
I mean,
That's just so wrong.
So, but I think people want to know, like, oh, we're going to watch this show. We're going to try to get nuggets and what's happening. Yes, we're going to give you the details. We're going to let you know if there's updates and changes going on in Las Vegas. But ultimately, you can't just take the show and be like, well, I'm going to go buy based upon that. I don't think many people do. But you have to really look at the situation because, man, there's so many different angles in this market. It's a complete different market than it was 5, 6, and 7. Completely different. Yeah. And there's nothing out there that's saying that this economy is in any type of serious situation.
When
Because
nights are down, when nothing.
oh, there you go. Then maybe it is. Now it's a serious situation.
But let me ask you this: what, in my opinion, I think that people got a reality check when COVID hit because you were stuck in your house, and I think that's what drove the market, where people were like, "Oh, I don't really like where I live, or I don't have a big backyard."
Because you couldn't leave. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, think
that,
about
that
it,
had
right?
a factor. Yeah, I never even thought about
Because
that.
if I think that was the biggest drive, in my opinion. I think that's what drove the
never even thought
market.
about that before.
That people were stuck in their homes
Yeah.
and they realized, like, hey, this home is not comfortable for me and my family.
Well, I talked about it numerous times. You know, if you're working from home, you need a bigger home, right?
Well, that
Or
aspect,
a downside.
that
but-
aspect, yeah.
Right. I mean, but a lot of people are starting to work from home and they're leaving big cities and they're going to more suburban areas to find these bigger homes.
That's a whole other issue. I think the way of the brick and mortar office is not on its way out, but will be changed significantly. And any bit which Vegas fits that bill, which is evidence of it going up, not going down. Because now you can work for an LA company in Vegas, not have to be in LA,
Absolutely,
and have all that. So you look at it from that aspect, it seems to be going up. But
well, let's end this show. I'm just going to
Okay.
say, anybody out there, you guys have any comments, please give us your feedback. Let us know what your thoughts are. We don't know what's the best time to buy. It's up to you. I don't have an
Whatever
answer.
your goal is.
Whatever your situation is. I know realtors out there and everybody's pushing to buy because if you're going to be out of the market, I don't know. I mean, it depends on where your situation's at. I think we've covered that. If you guys, like I said, if you guys want to please subscribe to the channel, we're going to continue to put out good content and quality content and stuff just coming from different angles of Las Vegas. You guys have any final thoughts before I end the show?
I thought you already asked that.
No, I know. Let's see. I was talking to you, but do you have anything else? What about your, I was going to say, what about your website? How do people get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. So I do mostly estate planning and business transactions, contracts, and business litigation. You can get a hold of me at dragonlawgroup.com, fill out the form, and that's how you got a question, just let me know, and I'll get back to you ASAP.
Yeah, most of the stuff, as you said, liens, and you deal with that type of stuff,
and
right?
do you do trusts and things like that too?
Yeah.
I do trust.
Yeah.
So
All right, Esmeralda, how do you push how does the public know about you? Is it even important? Like, how do you push yourself?
Well,
Is
I
it-
don't. I don't deal so much with the consumers. I deal mostly with the agents and lenders. But if you do have any questions with title and escrow, we do for sell by owner transactions all the time. And if you just want help or you just need some questions answered, you can call me. You can get a hold of me.
Yeah, so the consumer out there, they don't even, I hate to say this,
Yeah.
but they're directed on who to use for title.
Exactly.
So they don't really have a chance to get to you. It's kind of like what a realtor does with a lender. They direct that client
Exactly.
to the lender. So your situation's a little different.
Exactly. I'm behind the scenes. I deal with the lenders and the agents directly, and you guys deal with the consumer, and you guys.
Yeah.
yeah, or they can ask me. You know, I know how to do all that stuff too. So.
Right. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll be on another show here on Saturday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this good information we put out. Appreciate everybody out there. If you guys have any comments, please subscribe. Put some comments in the comment section. And we're out. Thank you for watching an episode of the French Workbench Podcast. If you want to tune into past episodes, please subscribe to my channel now. Also, if you want to look at our audio-only options, we do have iTunes and SoundCloud.